in simple terms, what is regional economic integration is the integration between the economies of two or three nations, where you try to two or three or maybe the type of integrations which we are going to learn include more than 20 nations, some of it which we are going to learn in the class. So just to try explaining that it will be an integration between two or three nations where they try to indent or collaborate with respect to trading of their services or trading of their products, movement of labor from one country to another, or it can be the development of in the field of education. As you can see, many of the international universities, they have come to India recently. Likewise, we have also moved to different places across the globe. Our institution, best institutions, are offering courses, right? We conduct seminars, we offer courses. We have many, like, Rajagiri, some of the nearby institutes, they go with the twinning programs where they collaborate with some of the universities in a different nation, where students get an opportunity to travel to those countries. So all these are part of regional integration. You have European Union. It's very popular integration where the countries in the European zone. Of course, we heard about Brexit, where UK came out of that integration, but there are still 27 countries into European Union integration, and this integration has a history of 47 years plus. So, in this context, we are going to discuss about the types of regional integration. We discussed about the key term called trade blocks, the need for it, the different types of regional integrations like ASEAN. Some of it is very familiar to us, like SARC, ASEAN, Nafta, Common Market. All these are very familiar to us. We are just going to look at what is it, why do they go for it, or what are the basic objectives. That's actually the content of our today's class. So just moving further, the first, as I said, no, the core idea behind any type of regional integration is removing or eliminating the economic barriers. Now, why that elimination of economic barriers is basically to enhance the productivity, or maybe to go with greater economic interdependence, because as we have learned at the beginning, like in the initial modules, we have learned that there is some kind of import or export advantage. Some countries have some kind of advantage over others when they go with production or distribution of certain products or commodities. Competitive advantage, that's the key term which we introduced. So that is the context in which there needs something called as regional integration. So the countries having competitive advantage in one category of product can concentrate on that and engage in better trade relationship with other countries which might be having competitive advantage in some other area. Then they can, the so-called country can concentrate on maybe the kind of product or service where they have competitive advantage. That's what we have learned in the theories. So the regional integration as a concept in international trade has come from this context, that yes, eliminating the economic barrier so that both the collaborating countries can excel in that particular area where they have some kind of competitive advantage. That's why we say that greater interdependence in order to promote each other's development. So this is the concept. The key term which you have to remember in your mind when we are discussing about regional economic integration is the kind of elimination of economic barriers, and in that we will go with elimination of trade barriers, introduction of free trade zones, right? Or maybe lesser external tariff, minimal external tariff, minimal barriers, trade barriers. All these are the net results of economic integration. Okay. Now going with the trade blocks. Trade block is, no, if you ask me, tell me in one word, what is a trade block? It is basically an intergovernmental agreement. That is an agreement between the governments of two nations, maybe two regions, And what can be the idea behind that trade bloc? Of course, as the word indicates, basically that will be for promoting trade between this two countries. Maybe if India is having a trade agreement with maybe Japan for the export of maybe car, for the export of car from Japan to India. We talk from when we talk from the perspective of India, it is import of foreign cars. So that is actually an agreement which is specifically looking into one aspect which talks about import of cars into India. But when we talk about a trade bloc, it can be a broader perspective. It can go with specialized trading, or it can cover the whole, like the trade relationship between two countries, specifying in which all areas we are planning for our trade relationships. So that is why we say that trade bloc is an intergovernmental agreement for promoting the trade or trading activities between the nations. Okay, so that's the first key term which we introduce under the heading regional integration, trade bloc. Okay, now we are going with the second key term, which is preferential trade area. Now, all the concepts which we would be discussed, we are going with around 16 concepts. All these are connected with regional integration. If somebody asks you, just explain to me what is this regional integration in international trade, all these will be part of that discussion. Okay, so the next one is preferential trade area. Preferential trade area again is a trade bloc. As the name indicates, it gives preferential access to certain products or maybe services within the participating country. It's actually a generic trade. Trade bloc as well as preferential trade area is a generic term. The examples, I have put few examples: Nafta, ASEAN, right? North American Free Trade Agreement, or ASEAN is a good example of this preferential trade area agreement. So it's actually giving access to the member countries to the listed or the mentioned areas which are being included as per the agreement. So if that is the case, that condition will be called as preferential trade area, which talks about, see, suppose if India is not having a trade relationship with Uruguay, naturally there is no kind of concession that will happen between Uruguay and India or Tajikistan. Those are the countries where we do not have much trade relationship. India as such do not have much trade relationship. So there is no concessional tariff, or there is no established rates which can promote trade between these two countries. Whereas India is having an established trade relationship with some of the South Asian countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore. We already have established trade relationship between these countries. So when we talk about those perspective, it talks about reduced tariff rate, or maybe zero to, in certain cases it can go up to 0% tax rate, which is applicable to the participating nations. So these are some of the benefits that can be enjoyed if you go with the preferential trade area agreement. So this is the second concept. We talked about trade bloc, where access to a particular group of product or services. Uh, when we expand that term is presented from the perspective of preferential trade area. That means you have a particular association, and within that association, the movement of goods and services, there can be free flow of movement of goods and services between these places. There can be free flow of labor. People can know, as before Brexit, no, you people, now the European Union countries, they have that facility. They can travel, work, live anywhere between these member countries. Now you cannot, UK cannot enjoy that after Brexit in 2020. They cannot enjoy that. UK citizen need to obtain visa if they have to go and stay in any of the places in European Union. which are in any of the countries which are in European Union, if it is for more than 180 days. But earlier, it was that people, UK citizen, they can travel freely to any countries in the European Union. They can work over there. They can stay maybe in their home country, like United Kingdom, but they can travel, work, come back. There was free flow of labor, capital, human resources, all between these nations. So that is actually the benefit of this preferential trade area. Okay, now we are going with one by one. And this is one concept which comes under regional integration, that is common market. It's actually I have put an example. European Common Market is the most popular one in this category, which aims to provide free movement of goods, capital, services, and labor between the European Union. That's the largest, the prominent one. That's why I put that as an example. Common market. So you have a common market where you can bring your products and services to these places, and there is a common tariff, external tariff, that has come as an arrangement with the foreign ministry of that particular nation, and it's already fixed. So the agreement between the countries that allows products, services, or workers to cross the border freely. I was talking about the example of UK citizens working in any place in the European Union, any country which is part of European Union, coming back living in their place. That was possible, but now after Brexit, that is not possible. So this is an example of European Common Market. Now, European Common Market is one example of Common Market concept. Likewise, there can be the association, like West African nations. They have an association. East African nations, they have an association. All these are established common markets, which is no basically for the benefit of the member countries, promoting the trade between member countries, at the same time protecting their economy against the influence of other stronger economies. Because in Africa and all, you have small countries, and they are not an expert in many of the trading activities. So what they do is they join together, they become the common market, and they try to establish trade relationship between developed nations like USA, Australia. So that's how they go with good trade relationship, which is beneficial for both the parties. Because if small countries in Africa, if they try to go for individual trade relationship, that may not happen. That's why these common markets give uh, a powerful appearance, a presence in the international trade for countries from the developing or underdeveloped categories. They are also getting a stand in the international trade. So, common market where there is free movement of goods, or it depends on the condition. Okay, for European Union, this is the condition where there is free movement of goods, capital, services, labor between the member countries. So that again is another concept which is formed um, uh, for promoting trade between the nations. Broadly, if you look into, if somebody asks me, what is the primary benefit of this common market? It would be the kind of advantages which member countries receive on the external tariffs and taxes. That is the primary benefit they can get when they go with this common market. Tax rates would be less. Accordingly, product price can be reduced, and consumer acceptance can be more. All these can be the plus point of common market. Now we are going with European Union. European Union initially, like way back in 1958, when it came into existence, it was called as European Economic Community, EEC, WC, EEC. Initially, there were six countries, which included Belgium, Germany, France, Italy, Luxembourg, and Netherlands. These were the countries. Initially, they went into a collaboration. Primarily, the intention was to smoothen the trade relationship between these countries in the European Union. And later, okay, maybe by 1993, AEC came to be known as, I still remember because I had started learning commerce during that time, and we had a lot of presentations and explanations, and because that was a powerful move that was taken up in in the arena of international trade by popularizing the concept of single currency for all the nations. No, euro came up as a single currency for all the nations. Now the prominence, maybe it's not as it was before, but still euro is accepted in the global economy as a currency for international trade. And the concept, when it came up in 1993, when European Union came, the basic idea was stabilized economy with single currency and free mobility between the nations, which can promote economic growth. That was a theme, that is single currency promoting stability in the economy, because there were a lot of economic crisis between in some of the nations within European Union during that time. So that is why they came up with a single currency, just to avoid the confusions, the fluctuations in the exchange rate and all, euro. And then that was intended to promote stability within the market, within the union, European Union. And now, as you can say, there are 27 EU countries together, which are promoting economic cooperation between each other. And January 2020, UK took up a decision to exit or to come out from this union. The reasons, the benefits of that, we would be discussing in the coming slide. That was taken up uh, with a pre-planned vision to promote the international trade in a different way. They came out of it, which is called as Brexit. So European Union, as we said, it is one of the oldest economic integration that is prevailing in the international trade context, in the context of international trade. Now, Brexit. There is no introduction that is needed for Brexit, because that was something that has happened very recently in 2020. But before that, a lot of discussions, lot of arguments, lot of no, policy formulations were happening in the context of UK, which caught the attention of economies across the globe. In India also, we were looking for it, because there were some of the policies which UK was planning because of Brexit is favorable from Indian perspective for Indian scholars planning to move to UK for going or pursuing with their higher studies. Some of the policies were favorable, because earlier you had to study and come back. Now that policy has become little more lenient, where UK is permitting the students, international students who come to their place for pursuing the higher studies or some course, maybe professional category, they can stay in the country for some more time and look for the job opportunities, work for the no, work in the international context. So there is the policy regarding the permanent residency, and all those things have been little liberalized, which is favoring for the students or the people who travel to UK for work visa, little more favorable towards them. And of course, UK, they were part of the Brexit, I mean, of the European Union from 1973 onwards till they exit in 2020. And earlier, prior to Brexit, the freedom to work and live between UK and European Union, the member countries, were the primary benefit of this, one of the primary benefit of this union. Apart from that, there was free movement of capital, labor, goods and services between the member countries of European Union. Now the change, the greatest change is, now if they have to go with the same kind of work and travel or live in any of the European Union member countries above 90 days continuously, or within a period of 180 days, they have to go with taking up visa. They have to go with application of visa. Earlier, that was not a mandatory norm. They did not need any kind of visa for traveling between the member countries in European Union. And the plus point, why the greatest advantage of why UK took up that decision is they are getting little more flexibility in deciding their trade relationship. Earlier, everything was decided according to the majority preference. Like there were 27 countries, and every decisions were made by taking a vote between the member countries, and UK had less flexibility to implement their own policy in the context of international trade. But now that is possible. UK, as such, they are negotiating the trade relationship between many countries like USA, New Zealand, or Australia, which is not part of EU. Right. So that is the plus point which we are looking at. And in the long run, UK plans to have their own international trade policy, which is promoting the growth of job opportunities, the growth of industrial sector within the country. That's a basic aim. That's what they've claimed when they went with the concept of Brexit, coming out of European Union. They wanted a trade policy that can promote more job opportunities, that can help in the economic well-being of the nation in a better way. Now they, before Brexit, they had restrictions. They were not able to implement many of the policies which was opposed by other EU leaders, but now they are free enough to do that, so that what they expect is in the long run their economy is going to prosper in a better way. That's something which they expect through this Brexit. So this is all about uh, in fact Brexit is coming out of a regional economic integration. It's actually a different kind of example which I had put here. We talked about European Union. I had brought here just to relate it with the concept. Actually, it will not be qualifying for economic integration. Regional integration is actually coming out of the integration for bringing little more flexibility in the international trade. But since it was very much related to European Union, I brought it here. Okay, so we discussed about European Union, and we also discussed about the the UK as a nation, United Kingdom as a nation, coming out of the economic integration because of some reasons which they considered valid from the context of their nation. Right? Now we are going back again to Nafta, which is again another regional integration, which is North American Free Trade Agreement that is between US, Mexico, and Canada. Okay, it was established way back in 1994. You can see that they are neighboring countries, and very similar in their cultural background, even though of course there is difference. But when we look from the perspective of uh, on a whole developed nations, these three nations, they have more or less similar type of culture. And I have met few people who really work in Canada, but they live in US. Some of my relatives, they do in that way. So that type of free trade movement, or that type of free movement, is established between these nations. You can travel weekends, they travel to US. During the weekdays they come to Canada for working, because maybe for certain professions, they Canada appears to be more comfortable for them. So it's like this. So that type of trade relationship is established. That type of economic relationship is established through the contract called NAFTA. Right? NAFTA is North American Free Trade Agreement, and it has almost eliminated the tariffs which are applicable in case of imports and exports. It's really interesting to note the regional integration between these three economies and how they contribute to the prosperity of each other in different aspects, especially in the manufacturing sector. It's interesting to read if you get a chance to read across how that is being done, how they prosper, how there is collaboration that is happening between manufacturing sector. Like some of the countries specialize in going with manufacturing of raw materials. The assembling happens in any one of these places, and these three together they are selling it to the world economies. So likewise, an established trade relationship, and it's actually a free trade zone. Free trade zones means with less or almost nil with respect to external tariffs. There is no taxes, extra tariff for the trade that is happening between these three nations. So that is NAFTA. Okay. So I'm just giving you a recap of what we had been discussing. First, we talked about regional economic integration, which talks about an integration that is happening between the nations for promoting the international trade between them. Okay. And the basic idea is elimination of the economic barriers, elimination of the barriers, primarily the trade barriers, but some of it is established to a greater extent where it talks about eliminating the uh, other types of barriers. In a way, it promotes better trade relationship that is contributing to the establishment of better economic conditions in the member countries. So that is the context of regional integration. Then we talked about trade bloc, the concept of trade bloc and preferential area, trade area, which is a concept which talks about better access to the products, more access to the more access with less type of barriers to the products and services, and the free movement of goods, services, capital between the nations who have gone with establishment of regional integration. Right? Regional integration. Those are the two terms which we introduced. Then we spoke about the different types of integrations like common market, where we talked about the example as European Union. It's a common market established between the European Union countries, which encourages trade between these nations, eliminating the kind of barriers that will discourage the trade relationships, like external tariffs or taxes and other restrictions which are there in the international market. We moved into European Union. European Union is actually a collaboration, a regional integration that has happened between the nations in the European continent. And of course, it's one of the oldest kind of regional integration, which is promoting the trade relationship between the nations in the who are members in the European Union, which is located in the European continent. Okay, and we talked about Brexit. Brexit is UK coming out of European Union. That has happened recently in 2020, just to ensure more flexibility in the trade relationships, and to align the international trade policy in international policy with the national policy, because earlier they had national policy, the guidelines, the regulations happening in one mode, but international trade relationships, they were like tied up. They were not able to bring a change in that because of their association with European Union. So that's why they came out of it, which can give them little more flexibility, and also aligning the trade policy also along with the national policies. That's the basic idea behind Brexit. Then we came with the concept of Nafta, which is the trade integration that has happened between three countries: Canada, US, and Mexico. Okay, so moving further, we are going with OPEC. OPEC is actually Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. It was first, created, or it came into existence in way back in 1960 with Baghdad in Iraq. Okay, five countries were there as part of this association. Now, as you can see, what you have to remember is the primary aim of OPEC is to bring, because you know that there are only few countries presently the members 13 countries, but there are only few countries who are engaged in selling oil or petroleum products to the world economy. So they have a dominance in the market, but if they try to fight with each other, they will lose that market. If one country is no like they are trying to bring down the price, or they are trying to penetrate into the market with their trade policy, that can negatively affect all of them. That's why organization of petroleum exporting countries is something which is contributing, which is formed uh, for better protection of the interest of all the stakeholders in the oil market. That includes good price to the consumers, good returns to the investors, right? And good market for the oil products. All these are the basic ideas behind forming an association, a regional integration, or as you say, international collaboration called OPEC. And initially, the five member countries, it was Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. Later, the other countries like Qatar, Indonesia, Libya, UAE, Algeria, Nigeria, Ecuador, Gabon, Angola, Guinea, and Congo joined together. And in this Ecuador, now you don't have them. I have put it here. Ecuador, they have suspended, again rejoined into 2007, but they came out in 2020. Indonesia also, they came out in 2009. 2016 they joined again, but same year itself they went back. They are not the members of OPEC now. Gabon again terminated the membership, but 2016 they joined back. Qatar terminated the membership in 2019. That's how they are 13 countries in OPEC. So, as I said, it is to unify the petroleum policies of its member countries, ensure stabilization of oil markets, regular supply of petroleum to the consumers, income to the producers, fair return on capital. These are the basic ideas or basic principles behind the formation of this regional integration. So, primarily, they are to protect the oil market in the world economy. That's it. Protect the oil market means definitely that is for promoting the interest of all the stakeholders. So it is between the oil selling countries association that is formed between the oil selling countries. Now there are 13 member countries. It's very easy for you to remember because we know which are the countries which are engaged in selling oil to the world economy. So it's an association between these countries for promoting the oil markets, right? ASEAN. ASEAN is a famous, no, as you say, association of Southeast Asian nations. Uh, this integration is very popular because this includes many of the South Asian economies which are having established trade relationships with India, and the founding countries were Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. Later, Brunei, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and together they joined with them in, as I have put here, 1984, 1995, 1997, 1999. And the basic idea behind ASEAN as such is economic growth in the member countries, social. See, when you look from the perspective of ASEAN, they not only go with establishing a trade relationship, but they are very much into the economic development in the member countries. That is why the kind of interference, the kind of interventions made by this integration is very powerful in these economies. Often we come to see about ASEAN agreement, and if you just visit their websites, it's very active. You can see how often they conduct different meetings to sanction different. They have come up with a lot of policies to fight against COVID-19 in the South Asian economies. So this is actually not only for promoting the trade relations, but actually it's an association which is formed by the member countries for promoting the mutual growth of these economies. And when you look into the member countries, you can see that more or less the culture, there is a lot of similarity between the culture, between the policies adopted by these nations. So that is why these are the basic principles of ASEAN. Apart from that, even they are engaged in the development in the field of education. They go with a lot of research projects in the area of education, agriculture, uh, promoting international trade, all these aspects. So this is very active economic integration in the South Asian economies, which is promoting the mutual growth of economies. This is something which I've taken from their website. Their website is very interesting to to read, because you get to know a pulse of what is happening in the international market, especially in the South Asian economies, by just logging into their website. This is something which I've taken up from their website, where you can see that the fundamental principles being put as, the mutual respect, the right, the integrity, the settlement of offenses, then effective cooperation between the member countries, promoting the trade and other relationships. So, in a way, this integration in the international area is promoting the type of engagements, or it is directing the type of engagements that is happening with these member countries. So that is all about ASEAN. SARC, we know why it is important, because we are also member in SARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, 8 countries in South Asia, and we are also founding member in that, where we have Bangladesh, Bhutan, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. Later, Afghanistan joined here with this. It was established in 1985, and the basic operations are very much similar to, the principles are very much similar to ASEAN. If you check the kind of activities they are engaged with, the guidelines being formulated by both these bodies, ASEAN and SARC, are almost same. That goes with economic growth, social progress, and cultural development in the member countries. That's the basic idea behind the South Asian Association. And this is area of cooperation, specifically not limited to, but specifically identified by SARC. I went detailed into that because we are also member in this international integration, where agriculture and rural development, education and cultural development, biotechnology is identified as a field which needs a lot of improvement, because the integration has quoted biotechnology to of as a field which can bring a lot of changes in the development of these economies. Economic integration, trade and finance agreements, energy, environment, tourism, science and technology. As you can read, no, these are the specific industries, specific areas which has been identified as the areas of cooperation in the treaty itself. There is an agreement that is made between the nations, and in the treaty itself, they have identified these areas to be very important. 14 areas very important for the development of the integration between the member countries. So that is why I put that as separate. So each of these areas, if you visit their website, you can see that there are a lot of activities which they have identified to be engaged by the member countries for promoting development in that area. In the website, they have clearly specified it. Maybe you can just read at your free time, just to get yourself acquainted with that. So SARC, South Asian Association, again is another economic regional trade integration. Basically, it's economic integration of the economies for promoting economic development, which is part of the international trade. Then Mercosur, it's actually a Spanish word. This is another example of a common market in the southern part. And this initially it was established by Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay. and subsequently Venezuela and Bolivia joined this. The aspect here is common market space for all these countries. It's actually a common market for these member countries to engage in trade for the mutual development. That's the actual theme behind that. And here, what we have to see is these are the countries which is having a different, as we say, a different culture, different types of demand, different kinds of the labor market. They are specialized in certain areas which can be a competitive advantage by coming together. All these, if you look into Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, or Uruguay, or Venezuela, or Bolivia, they have a different, distinguishable culture which is promoting the tourism in these nations. And Uruguay, if we take up, it is one of the nations which is quoted as the fast developing economy across the world. They are no a fast developing economy with of course the cost of living is very high, but as an economy their development is over the years, in the last 10 years, it tremendous. The reason is they are looking into different segments like tourism. They are promoting a lot of tourism in the country, and they are going with investments in the field of technology. All these are contributing to the development of the economy. Similarly, if you look into the other nations, they are also engaged in some kind of activity where they have competitive advantage. So that's why Mercosur, they have come together to collaborate with each other through a international agreement so that they can project before the world economy the kind of distinctive features which is specific to their economies. They are now, if you look in, they are identifiable across the world economy through this. Maybe individually they are very small. All these, they cannot make up a specific mark in the world market, but together as a regional integration through Mercosur, they are making the mark in the international trade. That's a primary reason behind this integration, which is contributing to the mutual development of these economies. So Mercosur is again another example of common market. And of course Pacific Alliance, uh, this is not so prominent. It's recent origin, but it's actually an integration which has happened between Chile, Colombia, Mexico, Peru, for promoting the growth and development in these economies. The concepts, that is the areas which they are into, since they are very recent into that, they are already established, but still it's just another. It may not be so powerful. It may not be so prominent as in the case of ASEAN, or as in the case of EU or SARC. But still, it's an association which is looking into these areas like innovative initiatives, mobility of people, tourism, cultural promotion, agriculture, creation of job opportunities through scientific and research inputs, academic and student exchange program. All these are the basic areas where this integration is concentrated upon. Okay, then like regional comprehensive economic partnership. Here, what you have to remember is this is actually the website, okay, where the website is very explanatory. That's why I have brought the website. After the class, it would be good if you can check these websites. And when we talk about this one, this is actually a negotiation that has happened, and that is why comprehensive. The word comprehensive carries a meaning here. Okay, regional comprehensive economic partnership. That comprehensive is the kind of relationship that is established between ASEAN members. We have 10 members and 6 ASEAN free trade area partners. Okay, that free trade area partners include Australia, China, India, Japan, Korea, and New Zealand. That is, you have ASEAN members, you have ASEAN free trade partners, together form up this comprehensive economic partnership. So ASEAN members, 10 members are there. Again, 10 more, again, 6 more members have joined this network with an agreement for free trade movement of goods and services, and together they are called as the Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. So that comprehensive has a different meaning. It's not as EU, it's not as ASEAN, it's not as SAARC, right? But the SAARC member, no, ASEAN members, they actually were expanding their operational arena or operational context into further maybe further areas by adding 6 more countries under the area free trade agreement. FTA, under the agreement, free trade agreement. So what's the benefit? There is free movement of goods and capital and labor, services, under the specified. Okay, you cannot go with everything as you want, but what has been specified in the agreement. And the agreement negotiations came back in, you had meeting and negotiations in 2012, which came up as an agreement in 2013. And this is basically looking into the overall development of these 16 nations which are engaged in the integration. So ASEAN principles would be followed, plus the ASEAN FTA partners also would be joining together to help each other in promoting the trade relationships within those countries. That's why we say that it is comprehensive economic partnership.